What's up everyone? In this video, we're going to go over how to use blocks in the Lexical Editor. Before we get started though, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and getting notifications so you never miss when I release a video about Payload CMS, Next.js, and more. If you'd like the code that I use in this video, there's a link to the repo in the description. Now, let's dive in. One of the reasons why Payload CMS's rich text editor is so powerful is that it allows you to import blocks that you create into it. This means that you could just build a bunch of blocks, import them into your Lexical Editor, and only have a rich text field to build a flexible layout for any collection you have. This video builds on concepts from my video on the rich text editor, as well as my video on using blocks in Payload CMS. If you haven't already, be sure to check out those two videos using the links in this video's description before moving on. If you've been following along, you should have a block already created called Content with Media. This block includes rich text, upload, and radio fields, and would be used to include text content as well as an image on the front end. We'll use this block in our Lexical Editor. In order to do this, we'll go over to our post config and find our rich text field, which is right here. Here we can add a new option called Editor and assign Lexical Editor to it. When we do this, that means that we need to import Lexical Editor, so that should happen automatically based on your IDE. And then we're going to open up our props for that. Then we'll add the features prop, and then use default features, which leads to an empty array. If you want to include all default features, you can go ahead and use the spread operator and add default features that way. Otherwise, select the features you'd like to use by following the rich text tutorial I mentioned earlier. After you do the spread operator for default functions, include a new feature called blocks feature. Now, if your IDE doesn't do this automatically, you need to import the blocks feature from Payload CMS rich text lexical. The same thing is true for our Lexical Editor. That needs to be imported from the same place. So now moving on with our blocks feature, we're going to open the props and then pass in the blocks option, which takes an array of blocks that we've created. So we already have one called Content with Media, so we'll just import that here. This next step is optional, but for blocks, I do like to have the fixed toolbar feature, again imported from rich text lexical from Payload CMS, and this just makes it easier to see where your blocks end up. When that's done, we can spin up our server using pnpm dev and then navigate to our blog post collection. So we'll do that here, and we're going to go to our rich text field in one of our collection items, which is right here. And here we have the option to add a block from the fixed toolbar, but you can also use the / and the blocks will show up at the top there. So we can select that, and we now have a Content with Media block imported into our rich text field. So whether you get to the Content with Media block through the 3 squares here, or you type in the / no matter how you get there, you'll then have a block added right here, which is similar to this Content with Media block in the normal blocks array. And so now we can fill this out just like we did before, and we can save that and then look at how this saves to our database. So if I go to the API, we then see in our rich text field this new type block that shows up here. And so here we can see everything that looks just like how it would in a blocks array, but instead put into the Lexical Editor. We can add as many blocks as we'd like to our Lexical Editor. So let's create another block and get it showing up in our rich text editor. We'll go to our blocks directory and create a new directory that we'll call table of contents, and then we'll add a new file called config.ts. In our next video, we'll create a component.tsx file to go in this directory as well, but for now, we'll go into our config file, import block from payload, then export a new const that we'll call table of contents, assign it to the block type, and then open up the empty array. So now we'll set the slug, which is required to be table of contents, and a fields option, which takes an array, and we'll create an array field. So we'll have name that we'll call contents, and then we'll have type of array, and then we'll have fields again. And then here we're going to have a text field that we'll call header, and another text field that we'll call link. Once that's done, you can go back to our rich text field in our post config file right here. And after content with media, we can now add our table of contents. Make sure that that imports up at the top of our file. And then we can go back over to our editor here. And then in our blocks, we then have a table of content block as well. Adding blocks to your lexical editor is just another way to unlock the power of Payload CMS in your projects. Not only can you use the blocks in your collections and pages, but you can then bring them into your rich text editor for even more flexibility in things like blog posts. If you found this video helpful, please like this video and share it with others who might find it helpful too. Make sure you're subscribed and receiving notifications as well so you never miss when I release a new video about Payload CMS and more. If you have any questions or suggestions, please drop those in the comments. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.